Well, Bern next was coming, and Bern invited this bass player. And the day that they were supposed to come down, the bass player called Bern and asked him could he bring this saxophone player. And the day that they were supposed to come down, the bass player called Bern and asked him could he bring this saxophone player. Play alto. I don't remember the fellow's name, but anyway, it was a quartet. And some other Buddhists, after other Buddhist members heard about we were, putting this band together, and they started asking neighbors to come over, and that's how it actually started forming together. Now, answer the question, no, it wasn't all Buddhist members. In fact, that Decoding Society only had two people who were practicing Buddhism, and that was me and Bern Nix. But Bern couldn't be in the band because he was still with Arnett. But he had been working uptown on 125th Street, and he had run this bass player who was going to Mega Everett College at the time. His name was Melvin Gibbs. And he told me Melvin still had baby fat on him. He was, still was, chunky little fella there. I mean, big fella because he's tall. And Melvin came and started rehearsing with me. And when Burns couldn't make the gig because he was working on that, Melvin said he knew a guitar player he grew up with over there in Brooklyn. And he told me, so well, he had thought about asked me about it, but the guitar player couldn't read music. So I said, that's fine. I couldn't read. I couldn't really read either the way I'm writing now until I met Arnett and simplified what really music breaks down to. I'll teach him what I know about that. Just bring him on. So that turned out to be Vernon Reed. And Vernon come over and he started playing, and he was playing so hard he was going down on the floor, but he wasn't doing showmanship. He was actually reaching for you. So I said, fine, that's good. And by then I had Melvin and Vernon. Vern had dropped out, and Bayard Lancaster had came in the group playing saxophone. But Bayard had got messed up because we had made this record, the first record I made called I Own You. And we played a concert. The first concert the Decoding Society ever played was out at Walker Arts Center in Minneapolis. That was the first concert we played. We drove, Bayard Lancaster's uncle had a new Chevrolet, and he let us use it. And we packed the drums and guitar and the bass and saxophone. And we got in that, it was four, we got in that Chevrolet, and Bayard drove, and I think I helped him drive out there. And we played there. In the second place we came back and played in, from Walker Arts Center we went to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Played at University of Michigan, right? In Ann Arbor, whichever it is, in Ann Arbor. And while we were doing the sound check, the recording company had sent a test pressing so they could play it on the radio. The record hadn't come out. But while we was up there doing the sound check, Bayard thought the record had came out and I hadn't given him one. And it was flashback there, I'm telling you about it, because Bayard didn't speak to none of us the rest of the whole evening. He drove back. The only thing he said all the way back from Ann Arbor, Michigan to New York was, I'm almost out of gas. We pull over and get some gas. He didn't say nothing else to nobody, right? We finally figured out what had happened. He, continued in the band. But then when we get ready, we made the record Nasty, and when we get ready to go to Germany, we go on this tour, the first tour of the Decoding Society. Bayard comes up here. We were living in 19E downstairs there. And I never forget, he had on a green polyester suit and a yellow polyester shirt and a green polyester tie and some see-through nylon socks and some patent leather brown shoes. And he sat on the couch and he told me, this 2 weeks before we get ready to go on tour to back up this record we made called Nasty. He tells me he can't go because he got a new group in Philly and they finna become a big hit. He got some new managers. That wasn't twice that happened. That happened with Henry Scott, the trumpet player too, where people come and promise him something and they dropped out the band to go seek their fortune without even really asking anybody, is this really going to happen? In the meantime, what happened was we were down at Vernon Gillis' loft, and Bayard came and said he couldn't go, and 2 or 3 days later we were down there rehearsing, And mixer son, Lee Rousey, comes in, and he had his soprano. He was down there trying to get a gig, book his band in the law at Soundscape. And I asked him, I said, hey, yo, man, can you play? He said, yeah, I can play. He got, Mr. Son got real Native American attitude, right? I said, well, can you read? Because you're going to be able to read this music. And he said, yeah, I can read. His brother plays upright classical bass for New England, the New England Symphony. And they
What tribe are they from?
The Iroquois. In fact, him and his father and them got a huge grant from the American government to make these raft. It's more like a difference between a raft and a canoe. They used to cross the Long Island Sound over to Long Island hundreds of years ago. And he still lives out in the woods in tents and teepees and stuff, and ride horses and stuff like that. His name means he who ride the wind, mixer son. And anyway, I auditioned him and he fitted right in.
With you and Melvin and Vernon?
Me and Melvin and Vernon and Zane Massey. See, because the other person of that trio was a trilogy, another triumphant, another three, another trinity rather. Vernon, Melvin, and Zane Massey all went to Boise High over in Brooklyn. They all went and graduated from there. They went all the way through high school together. So when we after Bard left, before Bard left, Zane had came into the band, but we needed this other player, and that was Mixer Son that came in the band. So I had two sections.
Zane covered tenor and mixer.
Zane, I used to see Zane when he was about 12 years old. He was playing tenor, baritone, saxophone, because the baritone was just as tall as he was. And they were playing, his father, Cal Massey, used to have a band, and they used to play down in the village gate on Sundays. Zane can transpose any wind instrument. He can go start with the flute, the clarinet, the baritone, the tenor, the alto. It don't make no difference. You put it in his hand, he's not going to miss a note either. And going to instantly transpose and keep right on playing. And so that was, but he was Cal Massey's son. Cal Massey and Coltrane were very good friends, So that's how that band formed. That's how that band came together. It wasn't I went around looking. I didn't go. In fact, I don't think I ever went around. The only time I actually called out for a band was when I needed a guitar player who could read classical music, because I had been commissioned by the VDR in Cologne, Germany, to do a classical piece, a classical ensemble piece, and I needed a guitar player who could read music. And Onaji, a friend of mine who actually introduced me to Buddhism also, Onaji had been working with this fellow named Jeff Lee Johnson. And he gave me a number, and I called Jeff, and this is flashback later, Jeff told me what happened, but when I called Jeff, he hung up on me. Because he asked me who was talking, and I said, this is Ron Shannon Jackson, and I have a group called Decoding Society. I'd like for you to work. Click! The phone hung up. About 3 days later, he called. He said, are you Shannon? I said, yeah. He said, I thought I was dreaming. I was so tired. I fell out on the table, and I was sleeping. I answered the phone. And did you call me? I said, yeah, I called you. I want you to play in my group. Because Onaji told me, and sure enough, he's one of the baddest musicians I've ever run into. But that's the only time I actually reached out. No, I actually had to reach out. Leslie Burrs, who orchestrated the music for the classical ensemble, I had to call and get him. But other than that, all the musicians came to me through other musicians.
What did Leslie play? What was his instrument?
He played flute, but he was very well classically trained. You hear a lot of his stuff on TV now. He's just stone classical player. In fact, that's the reason he wouldn't play. We fell out because he wanted to play with the Cologne Society. He wanted to take a solo at Murray's concert, and since he had taken a lot of solos at the classical performance, I was trying to get the other members a chance to solo, and you only have an hour to play. So I had 10 people in that group, and some of them had never been played on stage. Like some of the Decoding side didn't even get the solo that day, because I was trying to give the other cats a chance, to step out there, because that's, you know, that's the only way you really got there. Somebody give you a chance, and you got to pass it on and give somebody else a chance, you know.